Lily was a curious 10-year-old girl with wild curls that bounced with every step. Her eyes sparkled with wonder at the sight of new places, and the secluded cabin where she was spending the summer seemed like a world filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Nestled near a dense forest and bordered by a tranquil river, the cabin belonged to her grandfather, a man of few words but endless stories about the woods. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight streamed through the towering trees, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Lily woke up early, eager to explore the vastness around her. The cabin was simple, with wooden floors that creaked under her feet and a stone fireplace that stood as the heart of the home. Her grandfather, a tall man with a thick beard and eyes that had seen countless seasons, was already up, sipping coffee by the window. He turned to her and spoke in his deep, steady voice, mentioning the usual morning warnings. There was an added weight in his words today as he mentioned a bear that had been spotted near the river recently. His eyes, usually calm, flickered with concern as he stressed the importance of staying close to the cabin. Lily nodded obediently, but her heart was already tugging her toward the wild expanse beyond the porch. She wasn't afraid. Bears, to her, were just creatures of bedtime stories and cartoons. She had yet to understand the raw power of nature. After breakfast, her grandfather busied himself with repairing the old fence at the back of the cabin. The rhythmic clinking of his tools faded into the background as Lily wandered toward the edge of the forest. The river shimmered in the distance, beckoning her like a gleaming ribbon winding through the land. Wildflowers of every color danced in the gentle breeze, their petals stretching toward the sky. Despite her grandfather's warnings, the temptation was too great. She walked through the meadow, her shoes brushing against the soft grass. The river was clearer up close, its water sparkling under the midday sun. Dragonflies zipped above the surface, their wings catching the light. Lily crouched by the edge, dipping her fingers into the cool water. It felt like silk against her skin. A sudden rustle in the bushes nearby made her freeze. Her heart raced, but curiosity kept her rooted to the spot. A bird burst from the thicket, flapping its wings wildly before disappearing into the sky. She let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding and laughed at herself. It was just a bird. As she stood up, her eyes caught something in the mud by the riverbank, large paw prints pressed deeply into the earth, their size unmistakable. Her stomach fluttered, but she quickly shrugged it off. Maybe they belonged to a stray dog or some other harmless animal. Besides, the prints looked old. The sun had dried the mud around them, and there were no signs of a recent disturbance. Still, the thought lingered at the back of her mind. As she wandered further along the river, she picked wild flowers, braiding them into a crown as she walked. Time seemed to slip away, and the shadows grew longer. The river's melody was soothing, lulling her into a sense of safety. The sudden snap of a branch jolted her from her peaceful daze. She looked up, her eyes darting toward the dense trees on the other side of the river. Lily's heart thudded in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. It was probably just the wind or another bird. But as she turned back toward the cabin, a strange feeling crept over her, the sensation of being watched. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled, and the cheerful meadow no longer felt welcoming. Hidden in the shadows, a large bear watched her with a mixture of curiosity and instinct. Its massive form blended with the trees, making it nearly invisible. The bear was not aggressive, merely curious about the young girl who had wandered so close to the river's edge. Lily remained blissfully unaware of the bear's presence as she twirled her wildflower crown between her fingers. Her earlier unease was fading as the gentle melody of the river lulled her back into a sense of peace. The shimmering water sparkled under the fading sunlight, inviting her closer. The world felt like her playground, untouched by danger. She crouched near the water, reaching for a smooth, round stone that gleamed on the riverbed. Her foot slid slightly on the damp, algae-covered rocks, but she regained her balance with a laugh. Determined to collect the stone, she leaned further, her fingers brushing against its cool surface. The gentle flow of the river whispered around her ankles, enticing her deeper. A sudden breeze rustled the trees, sending a shiver down her spine. The bear, still hidden in the shadows, shifted slightly, its massive paws pressing into the soft earth. It observed Lily with quiet interest, its nose twitching as it caught her scent. There was no immediate threat in its stance, only an animal's natural curiosity. Lily stood up triumphantly, holding the stone in her hand. She admired its smooth texture and shiny surface before slipping it into her pocket. The wildflowers around her swayed gently, as if cheering her on. She stepped back toward the bank, her shoes pressing into the slick rocks. Without warning, the riverbed shifted beneath her feet. The algae-coated stones became treacherously slippery, and Lily's arms flailed as she struggled to regain her footing. Her wildflower crown tumbled from her hand, landing in the swirling water. Panic seized her as her legs buckled, and she fell hard against the rocks. The bear, now partially visible at the forest's edge, lifted its head at the commotion. Its ears perked up, and its dark eyes gleamed with newfound attention. Still, it made no move toward the water, content to observe. Lily gasped as cold water surged over her legs. Her heart raced, but she tried to push herself up. The rocks were slick, and each attempt to stand only sent her slipping further into the current. Her breath came in panicked bursts as the river's pull grew stronger. Water splashed against her face, stinging her eyes. The current, deceptively gentle at first, revealed its hidden strength. It dragged her downstream, pulling her away from the safety of the riverbank. Lily's arms flailed, desperate to find something to hold on to. Her lungs burned as she struggled to keep her head above water. Branches from overhanging trees lashed at her arms, leaving red scratches in their wake. The wildflower crown floated beside her, bobbing like a reminder of her carefree moments just minutes ago. Now, every second was a fight for survival. Lily's mind raced. She remembered her grandfather's stories about the river, how it could be calm one moment and fierce the next. She had never imagined herself caught in its grasp, fighting against its relentless pull. Her fingers grazed a low-hanging branch, but the slippery bark eluded her grasp. The river roared in her ears, drowning out all other sounds. Her legs kicked frantically, but the swirling current only pulled her deeper. Water filled her mouth as she gasped for air, and terror gripped her heart. Each breath became harder to take, and her vision blurred from panic and exhaustion. The bear, now standing at the edge of the forest, watched intently, its powerful frame tense, sensing the girl's struggle. The shadows of the trees played across its thick fur as it shifted uneasily. Though the bear had no intention of harming her, nature's raw power was on full display. Lily's strength began to wane, and her movements grew sluggish. Her arms, once flailing with desperate energy, now barely broke the surface. The river's relentless current seemed determined to claim her. The forest trembled as the bear broke from its motionless stance. Leaves scattered in its wake, and branches snapped under the weight of its massive paws. The beast charged through the thick underbrush, its instincts roaring louder than the river's turbulent current. The urgency in its movements disrupted the serenity of the wilderness. Birds scattered from the treetops, their frantic calls slicing through the air, while smaller animals scurried for cover. The bear's dark eyes never left Lily, who was still flailing against the river's relentless grip. Her tiny form was barely visible now, tossed about by the merciless waves. The bear's powerful body carved a path through the forest parallel to the water, its senses heightened by the girl's desperate struggle. Twigs and branches clawed at the bear's thick fur, but it pressed on, undeterred. The wild instinct that had driven its ancestors through countless seasons now surged through its veins. This wasn't a hunt but a response to a primal call. A life was in danger. As it reached the edge of the riverbank, the bear paused briefly, its muscles taut. The current roared angrily below, frothing and swirling as it carried Lily farther downstream. Her head bobbed above the water for a fleeting moment before disappearing beneath the surface. The bear's eyes flickered with determination. Without hesitation, it lunged into the icy water. The river hissed around its massive frame, but the bear moved with surprising agility. Its powerful legs churned through the current, cutting through the turbulence with ease. Water sprayed in all directions, but the beast remained focused on its mission. The cold bit into the bear's skin, but it pushed forward, propelled by a deep instinct to protect. Each stroke brought it closer to Lily, whose struggles had grown weaker. Her arms floated limply, and her head barely broke the surface. The river seemed determined to claim her. The bear surged through the water, driven by sheer willpower. Its dark fur gleamed under the fading sunlight, droplets clinging to every strand. The current tugged at its powerful frame, but it was no match for the creature's raw strength. Each movement was purposeful, honed by generations of survival in the wild. As it neared Lily, the bear's sharp senses detected the faint scent of fear mingled with the crisp aroma of the river. Her backpack, partially submerged, bobbed erratically beside her, the straps floating like desperate tendrils seeking salvation. The bear adjusted its course with remarkable precision, its massive paws slicing through the current. It closed the distance swiftly, the turbulence fading into background noise as it focused solely on the girl. The wild rhythm of the forest pulsed in its ears, urging it onward. Reaching Lily just as the river threatened to pull her under again, the bear made its move. Its powerful jaws closed around the thick strap of her backpack. The fabric strained under the pressure, but it held firm. The bear's grip was secure, and with a mighty tug, it began to pull her toward the shallows. The current fought back, thrashing against them with all its might. Water splashed violently as the bear strained to keep its hold. Lily's limp form swayed in the water, but the backpack strap remained taut between her and the determined beast. The bear's muscles burned from the effort, but it did not relent. Its paws found purchase on the slick riverbed as it powered through the final stretch toward the bank. Water cascaded around them, shimmering like liquid diamonds in the fading light. The bear powered through the final stretch, determined to bring Lily safely back to shore. Its paws pressed firmly against the slick stones on the riverbed, propelling them both toward the muddy bank. The current lashed against them, unwilling to release its hold, but the bear's resolve was stronger. Reaching the shallows, the bear paused, water cascading off its thick fur. Lily's soaked body hung limply, her clothes plastered against her small frame. The beast adjusted its grip on the backpack strap, ensuring it didn't hurt her fragile form. With careful steps, it hauled her onto solid ground. Once free from the river's grasp, the bear lowered Lily gently onto the grassy bank. Her body shuddered, drenched and scraped from the ordeal. The bear stood over her, water dripping from its fur, its breath heavy from the effort. It tilted its head, watching intently as if waiting for a sign that she would be all right. A sudden cough broke the tense silence. Lily's chest heaved as she expelled the river water from her lungs. Her small body convulsed with each ragged breath, but the sound was a welcome sign of life. She coughed and sputtered, her breaths gradually becoming steadier. The bear's dark eyes never wavered from her. It shifted its massive frame, inching closer as though trying to assess her condition. Its head tilted in a curious gesture, almost mimicking concern. The sight was both astonishing and comforting, a wild creature showing an unexpected gentleness. Lily's eyelids fluttered, and she blinked against the fading light, her senses slowly returning, though her limbs remained heavy with exhaustion. As her gaze cleared, she became acutely aware of the towering presence beside her. The bear's fur gleamed in the soft glow of the setting sun, droplets clinging to every strand. Her breath hitched, but not from fear. Despite the chaos and terror of the past moments, she felt no threat from the creature. Instead, there was a strange warmth, an unspoken understanding that lingered in the space between them. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment, a silent connection formed. Lily's heart, still pounding from the near-death experience, steadied as she focused on the bear's calm demeanor. Gratitude washed over her, mingling with disbelief. The creature that had once been a source of warning and fear had become her unlikely savior. The bear snorted softly, its breath creating a faint mist in the cool air. It shifted its weight as if reassured by Lily's awakening. The beast lingered for a moment longer, then made a slow, deliberate movement toward the trees. Lily watched in awe as the bear retreated into the shadows, each step measured, its powerful form gradually blending into the forest's embrace. The rustling of leaves marked its departure until all that remained was the fading sound of its presence. A deep silence settled over the clearing. Lily lay on the damp grass, her body aching but alive. Her fingers curled around the wet earth, grounding herself in the reality of what had just happened. Her mind raced, replaying every moment, the river's relentless pull, the bear's unexpected intervention, and the surreal bond they had shared. She knew no one would believe her story. Even she struggled to comprehend it. Wild animals didn't rescue people. Bears were meant to be feared, not trusted. Yet, the events had unfolded before her very eyes, defying all logic. As the forest resumed its symphony, Lily's thoughts shifted. A newfound respect for the wilderness blossomed within her. She understood that the world was not merely black and white, with danger on one side and safety on the other. There were nuances, moments of unexpected kindness, even in the wildest of places. Determined to keep the encounter a secret, Lily resolved never to tell anyone what had happened. The bear had become a sacred part of her memory, a guardian whose presence she would forever cherish. But a question lingered in her mind: how could she ever repay such an extraordinary act? Her eyes flickered toward the woods where the bear had disappeared. Though it was gone, its presence remained etched in her soul. A vow formed within her, a promise to honor the creature that had saved her life. She didn't know how, but she was determined to find a way. Lily struggled to her feet, her legs wobbly from the ordeal. She stumbled but managed to steady herself. The air was cooler now, tinged with the earthy scent of the river and the fading aroma of wildflowers. Her backpack hung loosely from her shoulders, damp but intact. As she made her way back to the cabin, every step reminded her of the bear's strength and courage. The forest no longer felt like a place of fear, but a realm filled with mysteries waiting to be understood. and at the heart of it was a bond, wild, raw, and unbreakable. Lily's curiosity bloomed after the life-changing encounter. As the days passed, her thoughts became consumed by the mysterious creature that had saved her. She sat by the window of her grandfather's rustic cabin, staring at the forest line, hoping to catch a glimpse of the bear again. The thick woods stood silent, keeping their secrets hidden. Driven by her fascination, Lily rummaged through her grandfather's dusty collection of books in the attic. The scent of aged paper filled the room as she flipped through pages filled with illustrations and stories about the wilderness. Whenever she found a passage about bears, she read eagerly, absorbing every detail. She learned about their habits, instincts, and surprising intelligence. What intrigued her most was their capacity for curiosity and adaptability. Her grandfather watched her newfound obsession with mild amusement, unaware of her secret encounter. He reminded her occasionally about the dangers of the forest, emphasizing the importance of keeping a safe distance from wild animals. Lily nodded obediently but kept her thoughts to herself. She couldn't explain it, but fear was no longer a part of her equation when it came to the bear. One early morning, a soft rustling outside the cabin woke her. The golden hues of dawn spilled through the window as she hurried to peek outside. Her heart skipped a beat when she spotted a familiar shape near the edge of the forest. The bear stood motionless, its dark eyes scanning the clearing. Sunlight gleamed on its thick fur, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Lily's pulse quickened. She wanted to approach, but caution anchored her steps. She remembered the books she had read. Sudden movements could trigger a bear's instincts. Taking a deep breath, she moved slowly, her bare feet brushing against the cool grass. In her hand, she clutched a piece of bread she had swiped from breakfast. The bear's ears twitched as she drew closer, but it didn't retreat. Its gaze met hers, calm yet watchful. Lily's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay composed. Step by careful step, she closed the distance, her hand trembling as she extended the bread. The bear sniffed the air, its powerful nose catching the scent of the offering. Lily held her breath as it took a tentative step forward. Her fingers brushed against its damp snout as the bear accepted the bread with surprising gentleness. It chewed slowly, never breaking eye contact. A strange warmth filled Lily's chest. This was no ordinary wild animal encounter. There was a bond, fragile but real, forming between them. The bear licked its lips and snorted softly, a sound that Lily took as approval. Her lips curved into a small smile as she watched it turn and retreat into the woods. The encounter marked the beginning of a cautious but growing friendship. Each morning, Lily woke early, hoping to see the bear again. More often than not, her wish was granted. The bear appeared near the forest line, its dark silhouette blending with the trees. Sometimes, it lingered, watching as Lily played near the cabin. Other times, it ventured closer, accepting small offerings of fruit or bread. Her grandfather noticed her frequent trips to the forest's edge but attributed them to childish curiosity. He was pleased to see her enjoying the outdoors but reminded her to remain cautious. Lily nodded, grateful he didn't suspect the true reason for her newfound fascination with the woods. As the days turned into weeks, the bear's appearances became more regular. It never showed aggression, nor did it threaten her grandfather when he worked in the garden. Instead, it seemed content to watch from a distance, as if it had adopted the cabin as part of its territory. Lily marveled at the bear's intelligence and gentle demeanor. She observed its movements, learning to read its body language. When it shifted its weight or snorted softly, she understood it was content. If its ears flattened, she knew it was time to give it space. The silent communication between them grew stronger, built on trust and respect. One sunny afternoon, Lily sat by the river, weaving wildflowers into a crown. The bear lingered nearby, its massive form casting a shadow over the meadow. Birds chirped in the trees, and the river sparkled under the midday sun. The scene was serene, a testament to the harmony they had found. Though Lily kept the secret to herself, she often wondered how her grandfather would react if he knew about the bear. She imagined his wide eyes in disbelief, followed by stern warnings. But deep down, she felt that the bear was no threat to their peaceful life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the forest, Lily made her way back to the cabin. The bear watched her go, its eyes reflecting the fading light. A sense of gratitude filled her heart, mingling with the curiosity that still lingered. She knew this was only the beginning. The bond she shared with the bear was unlike anything she had ever known, and it had changed her forever. The wilderness, once a place of caution and fear, had become a realm of wonder and connection. And while she couldn't predict what the future held, Lily was certain of one thing: the bear would always be a part of her story. The thought brought a smile to her face as she climbed the steps of the cabin, her heart light with the knowledge that she had found something truly extraordinary in the depths of the forest. The following morning, Lily woke to the soft rustling of leaves and the distant chatter of birds. The air was crisp and filled with the earthy scent of the forest. Her thoughts immediately drifted to the bear, the one who had become her silent guardian. She smiled to herself, feeling an undeniable sense of peace. As she wandered down to the river, sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the ground. The water sparkled in the morning light, and Lily's steps were light with newfound confidence. Her fears had been replaced by curiosity and a deep respect for the wilderness. Lily crouched near the water, tracing patterns in the damp soil. Her eyes caught a glimpse of movement in the trees, and she knew it was him. She had started calling him Scar after noticing a distinct mark on his right shoulder, a jagged line that stood out against his thick, dark fur. She wondered how he had gotten it, a fierce battle with another animal, perhaps, or a narrow escape from a hunter. The scar was a symbol of his strength and bravery, a tribute to the creature who had saved her life. Scar emerged from the shadows, his eyes calm but watchful. He kept his distance, always respectful of her space. Lily felt a surge of warmth as she acknowledged his presence with a nod. The bond they shared was unspoken but powerful. He was her protector, her wild companion, and she cherished every moment she spent in his company. Over the following days, Scar began to follow Lily during her walks by the river. He moved silently through the trees, his massive form blending seamlessly with the forest. Lily often caught glimpses of him, his dark silhouette a comforting presence. The bear's company filled her with a sense of safety, and she marveled at the connection they had formed. Her grandfather, unaware of Scar's presence, noticed the change in Lily. She was more confident, her steps sure and fearless as she explored the woods. He often watched her from the porch, a smile tugging at his lips. He was glad to see her embracing the beauty of nature, though he still reminded her to be cautious. One afternoon, Lily decided to venture deeper into the forest. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows across the trees. The forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. Scar trailed behind her, his presence a silent reassurance. As she walked, a sudden rustling in the underbrush caught her attention. Her steps faltered, and her heart raced as she spotted a pack of coyotes emerging from the shadows. Their eyes gleamed with wild intensity, and their lean bodies moved with predatory grace. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She knew coyotes could be dangerous, especially in a group. The pack advanced slowly, their movements deliberate. Lily's mind raced, searching for a way to escape, but fear rooted her to the spot. The air was thick with tension, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Before Lily could react, a deep, guttural growl shattered the stillness. Scar burst from the trees, his powerful frame bristling with energy. His eyes blazed with determination as he positioned himself between Lily and the coyotes. The scar on his shoulder gleamed in the dappled sunlight, a testament to his resilience. The coyotes hesitated, their instincts warning them of the formidable adversary before them. Scar let out another fierce growl, his teeth bared in a display of dominance. The pack shifted uneasily, their confidence wavering in the face of the bear's sheer presence. Lily watched in awe as Scar defended her with unwavering courage. The coyotes snarled and snapped, but Scar stood his ground, unyielding. His powerful roars echoed through the forest, sending a clear message: this was his territory, and he would protect it. One by one, the coyotes began to retreat, their tails tucked between their legs. The pack leader lingered for a moment, his eyes locked on Scar, before finally turning and disappearing into the underbrush. The forest fell silent once more. The threat gone, Scar turned to Lily, his eyes softening as he assessed her. She felt a rush of gratitude and admiration for the bear who had once again saved her. Her legs trembled, but she managed to stand tall, knowing that she was safe. As the adrenaline faded, Lily realized the gravity of what had just happened. Scar had risked his safety to protect her, and she would never forget it. Their bond had deepened, forged in the heart of the wilderness and tested by danger. Scar let out a low, satisfied snort before retreating into the trees. Lily watched him go, her heart full of gratitude and wonder. The scar on his shoulder glinted in the fading light, a symbol of his strength and loyalty. That evening, as Lily sat on the porch of the cabin, her grandfather joined her. He commented on her newfound courage and marveled at how much she had grown over the summer. Lily smiled, knowing that her transformation was due in no small part to Scar. Though she couldn't share her secret with her grandfather, she carried it in her heart, a testament to the wild and extraordinary friendship she had found. As the stars twinkled overhead and the forest hummed with life, Lily knew that her story with Scar was far from over. Their bond was unbreakable, forged in moments of courage and trust. And no matter what the future held, she would always carry the memory of the bear with the scar, her wild and loyal protector. News of a friendly bear sighting near the river began circulating through the nearby town. It started as a whisper, passed from one farmer to another, then grew into lively discussions at the general store and diner. Most of the townsfolk were intrigued by the idea of a bear behaving so calmly near humans. Some claimed to have seen it by the water, lumbering peacefully along the riverbank without showing any signs of aggression. However, not everyone was charmed by the unusual tale. Local hunters, always eager for a challenge, saw the bear as a trophy waiting to be claimed. They gathered at the edge of town, their conversations filled with plans to track and capture the animal. They spoke of baits and traps, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lily's heart sank when she overheard two hunters discussing their strategy near the general store. Their voices were hushed but laced with determination. One man spoke of setting traps near the river, while the other suggested using food to lure the bear out of the woods. The thought of Scar falling into their hands filled Lily with dread. Determined to protect her friend, Lily knew she had to act swiftly. She couldn't bear the idea of Scar being captured or harmed. The bond they had formed was too precious to lose. She spent that evening devising a plan, her mind racing with ideas. The next morning, Lily ventured deep into the woods, her heart pounding with urgency. She knew the hunters would waste no time setting up their traps. She needed to find a safe place for Scar, a hidden refuge where he could remain undetected. Her search led her to a secluded area far from the river, where the trees grew thick and the forest floor was carpeted with ferns. The air was cool and still, untouched by the bustle of the outside world. After hours of exploring, Lily stumbled upon a cave nestled at the base of a rocky hill. Vines and moss draped the entrance, making it almost invisible from a distance. The cave was spacious and dry, with enough room for Scar to move comfortably. It was perfect, hidden from sight and far from the hunter's usual routes. Lily knew this was the sanctuary she had been searching for. Satisfied with her discovery, Lily made her way back to the familiar trails where Scar often roamed. She spotted him near the river, his dark form blending with the shadows of the trees. He lifted his head as she approached, his eyes calm but watchful. Lily beckoned him to follow, her movements urgent but steady. Scar seemed to sense the gravity of the situation and fell into step behind her. They moved through the forest together, their steps synchronized by an unspoken understanding. The journey was challenging, with tangled undergrowth and uneven terrain, but Scar trusted Lily, following her lead without hesitation. When they finally reached the cave, Lily gestured toward the entrance, encouraging Scar to explore. He sniffed the air cautiously before stepping inside. Scar's eyes gleamed as he surveyed the space, his body relaxing in the cool, sheltered environment. Lily felt a surge of relief knowing he was safe. The cave would be his refuge, a place where the hunters would never find him. Days passed, and the hunters grew increasingly frustrated. Their traps yielded no results, and the bear remained elusive. Tensions rose as they scoured the forest, determined to claim their prize. Lily kept a watchful eye on their movements, her heart racing whenever she saw them near the river. One afternoon, the hunters came dangerously close to Scar's hideout. Their voices carried through the trees as they searched the area. Lily's breath caught in her throat, and panic surged through her veins as she realized they were heading straight for the cave. She knew she had to act quickly. Without hesitation, Lily ran toward the hunters, her footsteps deliberate and loud. She crashed through the underbrush, snapping branches and rustling leaves. The hunters, startled by the sudden commotion, turned their attention toward her. Lily pretended to trip and fall, her voice filled with alarm as she called out for help. The hunters, momentarily distracted, rushed to her side, their focus shifting from the bear to the seemingly distressed girl on the forest floor. One hunter helped her to her feet, asking if she was hurt. Lily shook her head, feigning embarrassment as she brushed dirt from her clothes. She thanked them for their concern, subtly steering the conversation away from the bear. The hunters, still unaware of Scar's presence, decided to escort Lily back to the main trail. She led them in the opposite direction of the cave, her heart pounding with each step. By the time they parted ways, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor. As the hunters disappeared into the distance, Lily let out a shaky breath. She had successfully distracted them, buying Scar more time to remain hidden. Her hands trembled from the adrenaline, but she knew she had made the right choice. That evening, Lily visited the cave to check on Scar. He emerged from the shadows, his eyes filled with curiosity and gratitude. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. Her friend was safe, and that was all that mattered. Lily's grandfather had always been attuned to the rhythms of the wilderness. Years of living on the edge of the forest had sharpened his senses, making him alert to the subtle changes in the environment. That morning, however, something far less subtle caught his attention. Standing on the porch with a steaming mug of coffee in hand, he spotted a dark figure moving near the cabin. At first, he thought it was a deer, but as the shape lumbered closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a bear, massive and imposing, its fur shimmering under the dappled morning sunlight. His first instinct was to grab his rifle, which hung by the door. Bears were unpredictable and potentially dangerous, especially when they ventured so close to human dwellings. But before he could move, he saw something that made him freeze. The bear was not acting aggressively. It stood near the edge of the clearing, its body relaxed as though it was waiting for something or someone. A movement behind the bear caught his eye. Lily emerged from the woods, her steps confident and unhurried. She walked toward the bear without a trace of fear. The sight left her grandfather speechless. He watched in disbelief as Lily placed a hand in the air as if acknowledging the animal. The bear seemed to understand, snorting softly before turning toward the trees. When Lily reached the cabin, her grandfather was waiting, his face a mixture of shock and concern. He demanded to know what had just happened. Lily's heart raced. She had always kept her encounters with Scar a secret, knowing how her grandfather might react. But now, there was no hiding it. Taking a deep breath, she recounted the story, the river, the rescue, and Scar's unwavering loyalty. She described how the bear had protected her from coyotes and how they had formed a bond born out of trust and courage. Her grandfather listened intently, his expression softening as the story unfolded. Though impressed by Scar's bravery, he remained pragmatic. He explained that the wilderness was no place for a bear to become too familiar with humans. It was dangerous, not only for the people but for the bear itself. He spoke of hunters who wouldn't think twice about capturing or killing a bear that strayed too close to civilization. Lily's heart sank at his words. She knew he was right, but the thought of sending Scar away was unbearable. Scar had become more than just a wild animal to her, he was a friend and protector. The idea of never seeing him again filled her with sorrow. Her grandfather insisted that it was for the best. The longer Scar stayed near the cabin, the greater the risk. He suggested leading the bear deep into the forest, far from human paths, where he could live safely and freely. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but she nodded. She knew it was the right thing to do, even if it broke her heart. That afternoon, she gathered her courage and set out to find Scar. She didn't have to search long. Scar was waiting near the familiar path by the river, his dark eyes gleaming with curiosity. Lily's voice wavered as she called him, but Scar responded without hesitation, following her as she led him deeper into the woods. The forest grew dense as they walked, the air cooler, filled with the scent of pine and moss. Lily's steps were heavy with dread, but she forced herself to continue. She chose a path that wound through thick underbrush and rocky terrain, hoping it would be unfamiliar enough to keep Scar from returning to the cabin. As they reached a secluded glade, Lily stopped. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting golden patterns on the forest floor. It was peaceful, untouched by human presence, a perfect place for Scar to make his home. Lily knelt down, her voice trembling as she urged Scar to stay. She pointed to the trees and the open space, hoping he would understand. Scar's eyes flickered with confusion, and for a moment he hesitated. His loyalty to Lily was strong, and she could see the conflict in his expression. Desperation gripped her as she repeated her plea. She knew Scar couldn't fully comprehend her words, but she hoped he could sense her intent. Finally, Scar let out a soft, mournful snort. He nuzzled Lily gently, a gesture of farewell that brought fresh tears to her eyes. With one last glance, Scar turned and disappeared into the woods. His massive form blended seamlessly with the shadows until he was gone. Lily's heart ached with the weight of the goodbye, but she knew it was the only way to keep him safe. The walk back to the cabin was long and somber. Her grandfather was waiting on the porch, his eyes filled with understanding. He didn't need to ask if Scar was gone, the sadness on Lily's face told him everything. That evening, as the stars blanketed the sky, Lily sat quietly by the window. The forest hummed with its usual sounds, but a part of her felt empty without Scar's presence. Yet deep down, she knew he was where he belonged, wild, free, and safe. The bond they had shared would remain a part of her forever. Scar had taught her the true meaning of courage, loyalty, and friendship, and though their paths had diverged, she carried the memory of the bear with the scar in her heart, a symbol of the wild and the extraordinary connection they had forged. Lily's story with Scar was far from over. Though she might not see him again, the lessons he had taught her would shape her journey for years to come. The forest, with all its mysteries and wonders, had given her a gift that no one could take away: the unbreakable bond between a girl and a bear. The days after Scar's departure were heavy and quiet. The once vibrant and thrilling summer now felt hollow and uneventful. Lily wandered through the forest paths that had once been filled with the excitement of Scar's presence, but now they seemed empty and lifeless. The rustling leaves and chirping birds offered no comfort, and the forest, which had always been a place of wonder, now reminded her of what she had lost. Her grandfather noticed the change in her demeanor. Lily, who had once woken up eager to explore the woods, now spent her days staring listlessly out the window or absent-mindedly sketching in her notebook. Concerned, he decided to lift her spirits. One morning, he invited her on a fishing trip to the river. Though Lily agreed, her heart wasn't in it. She sat on the riverbank, her fishing rod idle in her hands as she gazed at the water. Her grandfather tried to engage her in conversation, sharing stories of his youthful adventures, but Lily's responses were minimal. Even catching a large trout failed to spark her enthusiasm. As the days turned into weeks, Lily's sadness only deepened. She missed Scar terribly, his gentle snorts, the way he followed her at a distance, and the quiet companionship they had shared. She often wondered if he was safe and whether he had found a new home deep in the woods. The thought of him wandering alone, possibly in danger, gnawed at her. One afternoon, unable to bear the loneliness any longer, Lily decided to take a long hike through the forest. She followed a familiar trail that led to the secluded glade where she had last seen Scar. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers, and the sunlight filtered through the trees in golden patches. As she reached the glade, a sudden rustling noise caught her attention. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned toward the sound, hoping against hope that it was Scar. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, emerging from the shadows, she saw him. Scar stood at the edge of the clearing, his dark eyes fixed on her. His powerful frame was unmistakable, and the scar on his shoulder gleamed faintly in the light. Lily's breath caught in her throat, she couldn't believe it. Scar had returned. Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a step toward him. Scar let out a low, familiar snort and moved closer, his massive paws pressing into the earth. Lily's sorrow melted away, replaced by overwhelming joy. Scar was back, and the emptiness that had weighed her down was lifted in an instant. Over the next few days, Scar refused to stay hidden. Despite Lily's attempts to lead him back into the deeper parts of the forest, he always found his way back to her. He lingered near the cabin, his presence both comforting and concerning. Lily's grandfather, though still unaware of the full extent of their bond, sensed something unusual. One morning, as Lily and her grandfather sat on the porch, a group of conservationists arrived in town. News of a friendly bear in the area had spread, and they were concerned about the risks of human-bear interactions. They visited several cabins, including Lily's, to discuss the situation. The lead conservationist explained that while it was remarkable for a bear to form a bond with a human, it was also dangerous. Bears that became too accustomed to people often faced threats from hunters or were relocated to prevent conflicts. The best solution, they suggested, was to move Scar to a protected sanctuary where he could live safely without human interference. Lily's heart sank at their words. The thought of Scar being taken away was unbearable. He had returned to her, and now she was being asked to let him go once again. Her grandfather, though sympathetic to her feelings, acknowledged the conservationists' concerns. He knew that Scar's presence near the cabin was risky and that something had to be done. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily sat by the river with Scar by her side. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her chest. She knew the conservationists were right, but her bond with Scar was unbreakable. Letting him go once had been painful enough, doing it again felt impossible. Scar, sensing her distress, nuzzled her gently. His eyes held a quiet understanding that comforted her. Lily realized that Scar's safety was more important than her desire to keep him close. If relocating him to a sanctuary was the only way to protect him, then she had to find the strength to let him go. As the stars shimmered overhead, Lily made a silent promise to Scar. No matter where life took him, she would always carry his memory in her heart. Their bond had been tested by separation and danger, but it had endured, and that was a gift that would never fade. The decision weighed heavily on Lily, but she knew it was the beginning of yet another chapter in their extraordinary story. The forest had given them each other, and though it was time to part ways once more, their bond would remain as wild and unbreakable as the wilderness itself. The following morning, the forest was shrouded in mist, and the air was thick with anticipation. Lily sat on the porch steps, her mind racing as she thought about the conservationists' proposal. The idea of Scar being taken away to a sanctuary felt like a betrayal of the bond they had built. She couldn't let that happen. Determined to protect her friend, Lily decided to speak at the town meeting scheduled for that afternoon. Her grandfather, sensing her resolve, offered his support. Though he had initially agreed with the conservationists, he had come to understand the depth of Lily's connection with Scar. When they arrived at the meeting hall, it was already packed with townspeople. News of the friendly bear had sparked curiosity and concern, and everyone wanted to weigh in on the matter. The conservationists stood at the front, their expressions serious as they prepared to present their case. As the meeting began, one of the conservationists outlined the risks associated with keeping a wild bear near human settlements. He emphasized the potential danger to both the bear and the community, suggesting that relocation was the most responsible solution. Lily's heart pounded as she listened. She knew she had to speak up, but the weight of so many eyes on her was intimidating. Taking a deep breath, she stood and walked to the front of the room. The chatter quieted, and all eyes turned to her. With a steady voice, Lily began to share her story. She recounted the first time she had encountered Scar, the terrifying moment when he had protected her from coyotes, and the countless times he had shown intelligence, gentleness, and loyalty. Her words painted a vivid picture of a creature who was not just a wild animal but a remarkable friend. She explained how Scar had never posed a threat to the community despite living near the cabin. He had always respected boundaries and displayed a unique understanding of human behavior. The room was silent as Lily's words sank in. Her grandfather watched with pride, knowing that his granddaughter's courage had blossomed in ways he had never imagined. One by one, members of the community began to voice their support. A local farmer mentioned how he had spotted Scar near his property and had never felt threatened. Another resident shared a similar experience, noting that Scar seemed to understand the difference between friendly curiosity and intrusion. Encouraged by the community's response, Lily turned to the conservationists. She acknowledged their concerns but proposed an alternative solution. Instead of relocating Scar, they could monitor his behavior and assess whether he posed any real threat. If Scar proved to be a danger, then they could revisit the idea of relocation. The lead conservationist, a thoughtful woman with years of experience in wildlife management, listened intently. She admired Lily's passion and recognized that the young girl had a unique understanding of the bear's behavior. After a brief discussion with her team, she agreed to the compromise. Relief washed over Lily. She had done it, Scar was safe for now. The townspeople applauded the decision, and Lily's grandfather gave her a reassuring nod. As the meeting concluded, the conservationists approached Lily. They commended her for her courage and insight, acknowledging that her understanding of Scar had been instrumental in finding a solution. They promised to keep her informed about their observations and invited her to be part of the monitoring process. That evening, back at the cabin, Lily stood at the edge of the forest. The air was crisp, and the stars shimmered like tiny diamonds in the sky. Scar emerged from the shadows, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. He seemed to sense that something important had changed. Lily knelt down and extended her hand, a silent gesture of gratitude and reassurance. Scar rumbled softly, his scarred shoulder glinting in the dim light. Their bond was unbreakable, forged through trust, courage, and love. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Lily was filled with hope. Scar would remain in the forest where he belonged, and she would continue to protect him with every ounce of her being. The wilderness was their shared home, and their story was far from over. As the forest hummed with life, Lily knew that the fight to protect Scar had only strengthened their bond. Together, they had overcome the odds, and their connection was now a symbol of what was possible when courage, compassion, and determination prevailed. The morning dawned crisp and bright, casting golden rays across the forest. Lily stood on the porch, savoring the cool breeze that carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. Her heart was lighter than it had been in days. The decision to monitor Scar rather than relocate him had restored her sense of peace. Though the situation was far from perfect, it was the best outcome she could have hoped for. Scar had returned to the deeper parts of the forest but remained within the vicinity of the cabin. Lily knew she couldn't spend as much time with him as before. The conservationists had made it clear that maintaining a respectful distance was essential for his survival. Though the thought of limiting her interactions with him was painful, she was determined to do what was best for her wild friend. That afternoon, Lily ventured into the woods, careful to stay along the marked paths. As she walked, the forest seemed more vibrant than ever. Birds chirped from the treetops, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a mosaic of shadows on the ground. The place that had once filled her with caution was now a sanctuary of memories and lessons. She spotted Scar at a distance near the river, his dark fur gleaming under the sun. He lifted his head as if sensing her presence. Their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Lily lifted her hand in a silent promise, a vow to protect him from afar and never betray his trust. Scar rumbled softly before disappearing into the thicket. Returning to the cabin, Lily found her grandfather sitting on the porch with a proud smile. He had witnessed her journey from a timid city girl to a confident and compassionate young woman. He suggested a celebratory fishing trip, but Lily had other plans. She wanted to extend her stay in the wilderness. The thought of leaving so soon after everything that had happened felt wrong. The forest had become a part of her, just as Scar had. When she called her parents that evening to share her decision, they were initially surprised. They had expected her to be eager to return to the city. But as she recounted the incredible experiences she had lived through, their surprise turned to admiration. They expressed pride in her courage and maturity, agreeing to let her stay with her grandfather for a few more weeks. Her grandfather was delighted by the news. Together, they planned new adventures, from mapping hidden trails to learning more about the local flora and fauna. The days that followed were filled with joy and discovery. They fished by the tranquil lake, hiked through lush meadows, and shared stories by the crackling fire under the starlit sky. One afternoon, the conservationists returned to check on Scar. They were pleased with the reports of his behavior and noted that he continued to avoid human settlements. They commended Lily for her role in shaping Scar's trustful yet cautious nature. Her involvement in the monitoring process had proven invaluable. The news spread quickly through the town, earning Lily newfound respect among the residents. Her story inspired conversations about living harmoniously with wildlife and preserving the natural beauty of their environment. Even the hunters who had once sought to capture Scar admitted that they were wrong. They now viewed him as a remarkable symbol of the wilderness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily and her grandfather sat by the fire. He spoke about how proud he was of her and the incredible bond she had formed with Scar. Lily listened, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had come to the forest seeking a simple summer adventure, but she had found so much more: friendship, courage, and a sense of purpose. When the time finally came for her to return to the city, saying goodbye was bittersweet. She had grown attached to the cabin, the forest, and most of all, Scar. But she knew that this chapter of her life had come to a beautiful and fulfilling conclusion. Scar was safe, free, and thriving in the wilderness where he belonged. On her last morning in the forest, Lily stood at the edge of the trees, hoping for one final glimpse of her friend. As if sensing her departure, Scar emerged from the shadows, his scarred shoulder glinting in the morning light. He stood tall, his gaze steady and filled with the same unyielding loyalty she had always admired. Lily didn't approach him. Instead, she raised her hand in farewell, knowing that their bond didn't need words or gestures. Scar rumbled softly before turning back into the forest. Tears welled in Lily's eyes, but they were tears of joy and gratitude. Back in the city, Lily carried the lessons of the wilderness with her. Her parents, proud of her transformation, often listened as she shared stories of Scar and the adventures she had with her grandfather. She stayed in touch with the conservationists, eager to hear updates about Scar's well-being. Every summer, she returned to the forest to visit her grandfather and reconnect with the wild world she loved. Though Scar remained elusive, Lily never doubted that he was out there, living freely and fiercely. Years later, as she sat on the same porch with her own children, she recounted the tale of the bear with the scar. Their eyes widened with wonder as they imagined the adventures she had lived. The story had become a cherished part of their family's history, a reminder of courage, loyalty, and the extraordinary bond between a girl and a bear. And as the stars twinkled above the forest, Lily knew that Scar's memory would live on forever, etched in her heart and the wild places she held dear. What do you think about this amazing story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. We'll see you in the next video.